Please note, this episode contains discussions of sexual violence, suicide, conversion therapy, self-harm, and other mature and potentially distressing themes. These topics may be triggering for some listeners. Please take care while listening and know that your well-being comes first. Listener discretion is heavily advised. Zachary Mallory, who uses he/they pronouns, is a survivor of domestic gun violence, sexual violence, and conversion therapy. Through the power of his lived experience, Zachary has become a national force for change, using their story not only to influence public policy, but to support and uplift other survivors across the country. He is the founder and executive director of the Rise Above Justice movement, a grassroots coalition and dynamic platform with over 80,000 followers on Instagram. Through this movement, Zachary and fellow survivors amplify the voices that are so often silenced, raising awareness about the injustices still endured by too many. Their tireless advocacy for LGBTQ+ rights, mental health, and suicide prevention has earned them national recognition, including prestigious honors like the Spirit of Matthew Award, the Halo Effect, and the Empower Award. With more than 15 years of experience in public speaking, grassroots organizing, and shaping policy, Zachary brings both expertise and empathy to every space he enters. His leadership has helped build bridges between communities, lawmakers, and survivors, sparking real conversations and driving lasting impact nationwide. This is True Crime in Hollywood, Zachary's personal tale. Hi, listeners. So I'm sitting down with a new friend of mine by the name of Zach, and Zach was introduced to me from their social media page during the election run, if you will. And there was a page called Survivors for Harris that caught my attention. And ever since then, I have been following that content. And then I realized, oh, there's several survivors behind this account. And Zach is one of them. So I am so excited to have you on today. So, Zach, welcome to True Crime in Hollywood.
Fantastic. Ultimately, we began organizing because we saw a need
Mm,
and we saw that it wasn't really being highlighted.
yeah.
And if there's anything about Kamala Harris, is the fact that she started prosecuting sex crimes as a
Mhm.
district attorney. And the very first case that she prosecuted was Wanda Kagan. During our Zoom call in October, I got to introduce Wanda Kagan and she got to speak to 300 plus
Wow.
people that were on the call. Now, introducing somebody whose story that I have looked up to for the longest time and that I was able to come forward with my own personal story,
Hmm.
I found the courage behind them. Now, was Harris the absolute best candidate? For the moment, yes.
Hmm.
And, I'm still kind of having a former prosecutor being president, it does kind of leave a little it kind of leaves me a little uneasy because of my own personal experience. However, I
Right.
understood what was at stake. So organizing the Survivors for Harris alongside some other incredible human beings. And I mean, these are people that you wouldn't meet in line at a gas station or in line at a grocery store or, on an airplane. I mean, well, maybe on an airplane because people travel all the time. But ultimately, these are not people that I would have met just ordinarily.
Mm.
Um, Meeting Hadley Duvall, I'm getting choked up. If you can feel it, I'm getting choked up. Because thinking about where we were and think about where it's at now, which I'll get into here in a little bit. Just kind of walking through the experience that I've had with organizing and meeting some incredibly impactful people. Hadley Duvall was a campaign surrogate on the reproductive rights side of the Harris Walz campaign. And she came to Kansas City for a basketball tournament with her boyfriend. He's a coach. And had just sitting there and having the conversation with her and just seeing her like interact and just seeing her as herself and not, behind a camera and things like that. It was authentic and it meant the entire world to me just sitting in her car and just kind of like talking. And, she met my partner and we just had that conversation and we just had a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
She created the Instagram originally. And then she ultimately ended up losing access to it because we had like a whole password change thing and things like that, and people lost access to it. And but fast forward to November 6th. Obviously, this election was not how we anticipated it to turn out. There was a lot of momentum, there was a lot of force, there was a lot of excitement, there was a lot of joy. We were like, okay, she's gonna do this, we're really excited. And ultimately I woke up and I just had a sense of feeling that I needed to keep going, that I needed to do something in response to this election. November 6th, I looked over at Amelia, my partner, and I said, I want to keep going, right? I want to keep doing it. I want to keep organizing. We're close to 7,000 followers. It's really getting, starting to really get out there and really get going, right? And she was like, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to turn it into a movement that is more than just sexual and gender-based violence, but also hone in like gun violence and bring in like LGBTQ advocacy and bring in, like these really difficult, hard-hitting conversations that people need desperately right now to hear about those experiences and to hear about, the different lives and really meet people like exactly where they're at and get them to, our level to where, they're able to share their own stories. Fast forward, we came up with the idea of doing the Rise Above Justice movement, which is a coalition of sexual and gender-based violence survivors, allies, advocates, leaders, organizations. We collaborate with other movements and content creators and podcasts. And it's led me down this line of I'm going into my 15th year of organizing, and this is probably the most fun that I've ever had. I know it's not fun organizing around sexual violence and around domestic violence and around gun violence, but these are the questions and these are the experiences of people that oftentimes go untold if they don't have a platform, which we know damn good and well that survivors rarely ever have a platform. If they do, their words get twisted, they're re-victimized, they're re-traumatized, and they're exploited for those experiences. And that is something that I did not want to do. So we did it and we haven't. I always ask for permission. I ask for consent. We do Instagram lives and we make very well known that, to our viewers that are watching the Instagram live, like I'm going to ask some hard hitting questions that may be a little triggering to certain audiences. And feel free to hop off at any time and you can come back after we finish that conversation, because these are very difficult questions, but these are questions that need to be asked.
Yeah.
And these are topics that need to be discussed more often than not. And my true crime fascination came from my grandmother. Every time I would go down to my grandma's house, she would always have a true crime show on. And if we were being too loud, she would say, shut the fuck up, I'm trying to watch my true crime. And she would just kind of like go off, right? And, she would talk about her obsession with true crime and, what she wanted to do. And I'm sitting here looking at my mom, like literally right at the second, and I see so much of my grandma.
Yeah.
And I think about that. And, me and my mom watch true crime literally on like a practical daily basis. And we're just obsessed with it because there's something fascinating about why somebody does something that they did, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes we see a lot of glorification of the killer and not so much the survivor. So my movement is to shatter that narrative and give that survivor the front and center. Should they be able to, we also want to recognize that not everybody is able to do that.
Yeah.
The fear of retaliation, the fear of financial hardship, losing their job, losing their health care, losing their housing. That's very real. And also like discrimination and harassment for coming forward, especially if you come forward about a prominent figure, which there has been recent headlines about prominent figures in the political space and also in acting. And I definitely have reactions to that. And one of those reactions was watching The Quiet on Set about Nickelodeon. I grew up watching Nickelodeon. And thinking back, as a kid, I'm laughing at a lot of the puns and a lot of the jokes. But then I rewatch it, I'll be 29 in August. And I sit back and I rewatch those episodes and I'm like, wow, that actually really wasn't that funny. That actually is really horrific. And
Yeah.
what those childhood actors went through, they should have never went through. They should have been completely protected.
Mm.
Which that goes to show the point that it's never been about protecting children. It's always about power and control. And that's exactly what perpetrators prey on. That's exactly what they want. They find, vulnerable youth and they prey upon that. And it gets very, very, very disgusting and very disturbing. And oftentimes it gets discarded, like the experiences here in the Kansas City, Kansas area with the former KCKPD detective. They tried to sweep it under the rug. Roger Golubsky was not the person that people tried to paint him out to be. He was actually a perpetrator and he was very horrific. And this is supposed to be somebody who is supposed to serve and protect his community. But how are you serving and protecting whenever you're preying upon innocent women
Mm-hmm.
and you brutally assault them because you can, because you're an officer, because you're above the law? And the truth is, nobody's above the law, regardless of what profession you're in. You still need to be held accountable. But we know damn good and well that our quote unquote justice system in the United States is not what it claims to be. It's working
Mm-hmm.
exactly how it was designed to be. It was designed to hurt the poor, to hurt the working class, and to hurt marginalized communities. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're a Black transgender woman, you get put into a male's prison. It
Right.
leads to a lot of trauma. And, trans people in general, with these bathroom bans and with gender affirming care being banned. But gender affirming care is not just for trans people, it is also
Right.
for literally every single person. It also affects cisgender people, it affects
Mm-hmm.
non binary, trans, and people who need their testosterone or estrogen levels raised. If
Correct.
you ban that, that also prohibits them from accessing that as well. And people don't think about that, and it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
I just
I
went on
don't
a
think I
whole
realized that.
I just went on a whole blown rant, but it kind of it all pieces together because it comes together in the end because these are issues that nobody's really talking about, and if they are talking about it, it's skewed. There's a lot of misinformation about it, and unfortunately, it's coming from the right instead of the left, and it's coming from higher up and elected officials, and because I think oftentimes an elected official, they run for office and then they forget that hey, I'm supposed to work for the people and with the people instead of against the people.
Right.
We the people means all.
Yeah.
It means every single person, and you treat everybody with the same respect, the same dignity, and unfortunately, that's not what we have anymore. And our
No.
criminal, quote unquote, criminal justice system that we have now, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but now it's guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
And even then, you still wind up in the system without intentionally going into the system, and I was on probation for 5.5 years for something that I didn't even do. From
Jeez.
13 to 18, or like 12 and a half to 18, I was on, I had to go through like family court and juvenile court and do community service for a quote unquote assault charge that I never did. He
Mm-hmm.
knows I never did it. His family knows that I never did it, but it's a way of getting back at me. Yeah, that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole wild case. So I've been through the juvenile justice system,
Yeah.
which that also caused a lot of mental health concerns, attempting
Right.
suicide and being sexually assaulted myself at the age of 17 and going to my local police department and being told that you're mocking other survivors and you're mocking other victims. This did not happen to you, and we're not going to take your report. So, Independence Police Department, how do you feel now that I did come out with my story and now you want to all of a sudden start doing something?
Right.
After I finally was able to file my report, and this is the Independence, Missouri Police Department that did not believe me. They did not take my report until years after the fact. And then they want to be all apologetic. It's too late. The amount of humiliation that I went through and the amount of humiliation that survivors go through in general, whenever you are supposed to go to the police, you're supposed to report and you're supposed to tell them your story. But whenever you're told that you are mocking actual survivors and you are mocking actual victims, how in the hell is that supposed to make me feel?
Right.
I felt humiliated. I felt disgusting. What did I do? I put myself through conversion therapy because I felt like I needed to change
Oh,
myself.
uh,
I felt like I needed to like society was forcing me to be into this box that I was always meant to be in, because breaking that cycle of abuse and breaking that cycle of trauma was one of the most difficult experiences in my entire life. Having electrodes attached to different parts of your body to associate your attraction with the pain that I'm supposed to be feeling. And then for the Supreme Court of the United States to listen to this religious freedom case. And back in 2019, I was a part of a group that did a conversion therapy ordinance in Kansas City, Missouri. To watch that all go up in flames by the stroke of a fucking pen is one of the most devastating things that I have ever heard, because we worked our asses off to get that ordinance passed. And then other cities in Missouri did it. And then you started seeing it like more and more across the country, because, Kansas City is a trendsetter. Whatever happens in Kansas City happens in a lot of other places, especially if it's something positive or if it's something negative. But even though with that, these ordinances and these state, laws that pass to bar conversion therapy in those states with licensed mental health professionals, they could be overdone by a simple majority in the Supreme Court of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
What is so exciting about driving our LGBTQ youth to suicide? That is what this is going to do. It is going to drive marginalized communities further on the brink of suicide.
I mean, that's just fact.
Sorry, I kind of went in really hardcore.
No, this is your personal tale.
Yeah.
And it goes without saying, first of all, thank you for sharing that and feeling safe in the space to share everything that you just shared. And my heart is shattered to learn all of this. I see the rage inside of you, and sometimes we need to release those demons. And that's what I just witnessed. And it's a beautiful moment to see you own your truth, but not be held back by it. And when you give it meaning and you give it validity, it just makes what you are doing today for you, for your partner, for every survivor who has found this page. You're giving us hope. You're giving us purpose. And everything that you just shared, I don't care that you were going around and jumping thing to thing, because that's what it means for you to share your personal tale. And I wholeheartedly believe that somebody's going to hear this and be so moved by you, Zach, and to hopefully give them the same bravery, because this shit is not easy. This shit stays with us for the rest of our lives. Our bodies are the crime scenes.
Yeah. No, and that, yeah, 100%. And, we oftentimes hear, my body, my choice.
Yes.
It has a different meaning whenever you're a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
It does, and it goes for multiple things, because, I didn't have your traditional coming out, being LGBTQ and a young gay kid, in Missouri, in a fairly progressive area. I live right outside the Kansas City metro area, and it is a fairly progressive area. There's a lot of Democrats that are elected. There's a lot of progressive. There's a lot of, like, I'm a socialist personally myself, or like a democratic socialist. Like,
Yeah.
I believe in fairness and equity and equality, but I also know that we also live in capitalism. I also know that we live in a capitalistic society where corporations are more valued than a human being, and a firearm has more rights than a human being does. And that's when it gets to be a very devastating moment in our nation, whenever it's 2025 and we're still arguing over abortion access. We're still arguing over LGBTQ rights. We're still arguing about the Department of Education and what it actually truly does. And then a population that oftentimes is left out of the conversation is people who have disabilities.
Yes.
Look at what's happening with 17 attorney generals across the state trying to essentially remove Section 504 because there's a new coalition that formed that's called the Disrupt Coalition,
Ooh.
and they are incredible. So it is Section 504,
Okay.
which is to remove disability rights. And there's 17 attorney generals who signed on to this across the country. Alaska, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, because I'm from Missouri but live in Kansas now, so I have like a double whammy there. Montana, Nebraska, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Utah,
Utah.
and West Virginia. 17 states are suing to challenge Section 504, risking key disability protections. If successful, schools, healthcare, and jobs could deny accommodations. The lawsuit could weaken 50 years of disability rights. Section 504 currently protects people with disabilities from discrimination, ensuring access to education, jobs, and healthcare. Without it, millions would face exclusion. This lawsuit is a blatant attack on disability rights. If successful, it will strip away protections we've relied on for 50 years, making it harder for people with disabilities to go to school, work, or see a doctor. That is unacceptable. All of this came from the Biden administration adding certain protections for trans people into it. This is no more than a bigoted response.
Hmm.
And it started with Texas versus Becerra. Did I say that right? He was like under the Biden administration, he was the Secretary of Education. I think it's Becerra.
I'm
So
not entirely sure, but yeah.
Becerra. I think it's Becerra.
Yeah.
Is a direct attack on disability rights. um, and essentially, what they want to do is tell people who are disabled that you should not have the same rights because we're adding um, certain protections and adding certain language into this, and it's just a
Like
whole,
accommodations. Yeah.
yeah, and
Hmm.
it's just beyond disgusting. And this is no more than just a bigoted attack on transgender youth, transgender people. This is no more than a attack on disability rights and attacking 50 years of disability rights progress. I mean, we have the American Disability Act
Right.
that was enacted to protect people with disabilities, and Section 504 is under that. But I also saw the Department of Justice remove a lot of those guidelines directly from that. And thinking about who was just confirmed as the Department of Justice to lead the Civil Rights Division, anti-voting, anti-LGBTQ, literally anti-human,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
It just gets really ugly and it gets really disgusting really
Yeah.
quick. And there's
Yeah.
no other way. No other way to describe it, and no other way to even like look around it. And
It's barbaric. Like I don't.
it is. It's very barbaric.
Yeah.
It is, and it's a direct attack on our very human rights. It really is.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say really quick, I have to remain as a documentarian, but if people, uh, please watch Crip Camp, that's on Netflix, and learn about the Disability Act and really the grassroots of where that all came from. So I just want to plug that really quickly, but
Yeah,
continue.
no, yeah, absolutely. Because you know, liberation doesn't fall under fascism.
Yeah, yeah,
Liberation means that we give equity and equality and we recognize the diversity in our communities. Liberation
yes,
does not fall under fascism.
yeah, yeah.
Fascism is literally a way of taking away basic human rights, and we're still fighting for those very rights to this very moment, to this very day.
Correct.
Every
It's
single day
very
that I
relevant.
get on Instagram or I get on social media and I see something negative, it just sends me down a whole spiral because and it makes you want to do a whole social media cleanse because it's like
Hmm.
I got this ingrained in my head that this administration is literally trying to wipe away every single ounce of progress that we've made since this country was quote unquote founded, even though we know what happened there. It's
Uh-huh.
colonized. So, um,
Spoilers.
but that's the education that we won't learn in our education system.
Correct. Right. So,
God forbid we teach about, comprehensive sex education. We teach about STDs. We teach about HIV. We teach about, getting away from being abstinent. We need to talk about drugs and alcohol.
hmm
We need to talk about it. because that's how we save lives. That's how we do that prevention aspect.
Yeah. And that was my actual education in Utah, if anyone can believe that. I learned these things. But I was also in a very small liberal town called Park City. But with that being said, when I got to college and started meeting, people who were in Salt Lake Valley or wherever else in the state, no, no, we were not the same in that aspect. A lot of people were learning a lot of new history in like my history classes in college. It's wild to me. Like that is just, you know, I don't understand why that needs to be wiped away. I understand why they're trying to wipe it away. But all
Yeah.
I'm saying is, everything that you are saying just resonates so deeply. And what I also want to hit on with you, Zach, because you are also this survivor that is obviously watching true crime content. Now, when we really think about how media portrays male survivors in particular, I I went on a whole rant with my friend Crystal Stringer when we were talking about leaving Neverland. This is one of the greatest examples of, when we're talking about Michael Jackson. And I know you wanted to touch on a little bit about why you haven't been able to watch Finding Neverland, but also, just over the years and how much Michael has been brought up as an abuser. I mean, just, yeah. What are your thoughts?
So my grandmother is the one that actually introduced me to Michael Jackson's music.
Mm,
He was seen as like this very, happy person, right?
yes, very
I cannot pull myself to watch the documentary because I don't want to believe it.
much.
Because I think a lot of that is because I was forced to stay quiet.
Yeah,
I think I know how that feels,
yeah,
and a lot of those people that are coming out, they were most likely forced to like sign a non-disclosure agreement, which I know that I think they kind of hit on that in that documentary and stuff too. They talk about the non-disclosure agreement. I mean, look at P Diddy as well, right?
yeah. Oh,
Look,
yeah.
look at this P Diddy case,
Hmm.
and it's about to expose a shit ton of stuff, and I don't
Mm,
think it's stuff that we necessarily want to know about, but we do need to know about it because we need to know how these people are a part of our society,
and how
right?
they're operating. Yeah.
Right, and they're
Yeah.
doing sex trafficking. I mean, look at Andrew Tate,
Hmm. Yes.
right?
Yep.
um that's a whole thing in itself, and I don't want to get too deep into that aspect because that's a really really whew, that's a
Bleak
very
one.
hot topic one right now.
Yes. Hmm.
I did see that Spotify pulled one of his podcasts. I was kind of glad to see that, but it shouldn't have taken over 90,000 people to sign a signature, put a signature on a demand for them to remove that. They shouldn't have never allowed it on there to begin with,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
we see that a lot of times in the media. I sit back and I watch Special Victims Unit, like Mariska Hargitay,
Yeah.
and sit and watch that. And then I look at, how they prosecute it. And it's like, it ain't anything like that, period, like whatsoever. They
Yeah.
literally glorify this. They make it look so easy that you can just walk into a police department and say, I was sexually assaulted, or I was brutally raped, or I went through domestic violence. And you're supposed to be able to walk. If you look at that, you're supposed to be able to just walk in and just talk to them like right there and then. No,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
know damn good and well that's not how it works.
Uh-huh.
And people think like, oh, is that really how it works? Oh, well, what if I'm sexually assaulted? Can I just go talk to somebody?
Hmm.
Yeah, in a perfect world, that would be absolutely incredible to just walk in and just talk to somebody right there and then and just get justice like within a week. No, we know damn good and well there's survivors that never get their day in court. I will never see my day in court
I never got to.
because I didn't want to face him again. Either one of them, my two perpetrators in Missouri and Minnesota, I did not want to face them, period.
Yeah.
I did not want to see them again because of what they did to me. Caused me to go to the hospital, have medical bills out the wazoo, and I'm still dealing with a lot of those repercussions years after the fact.
Yeah.
Like the physical and the mental and the emotional. And I'm channeling my rage into this movement that has 78,000 followers on our Instagram now.
Hmm.
Like, obviously something's working and something is happening because people are starting to realize, hey, maybe I should uplift survivors. Maybe I should listen to these survivor voices. Maybe I should advocate for them more. Yeah, we've been screaming that from the rooftops
For quite some time.
for decades, literal decades.
Yes, literal
Have been
decades.
saying, hey, why don't you start by believing?
Yes.
We get messages all the time. Well, how can I uplift and how can I fight? Well, here's an idea. Elect those elected officials that will uphold the protections across the country, that
Mhm.
will help us eliminate the statute of limitations, because there should be no limit on when a
No.
survivor should come forward and share their story. There should be
Amen.
no limit on that.
Amen.
More states are becoming more progressive in that aspect. However,
Mhm.
there's certain ones like Missouri that refuses to budge
Yeah.
because we don't believe survivors. I did see that there's a couple current bills that, are going to make it easier to report and, things like that. And it came from, like a whole coalition of people, which is really good to see. It shows progress.
Yeah.
Crime victim compensation
Hmm.
funds across the country have been increased. The statute of limitations have been pushed back. So there is some really good things that are happening. It just needs to go way further than that.
Yeah.
But ideally, we will take the small wins every little chance we get because we never know when the next one will come, and that's the reality in which we're living.
Or what's going to be taken away from
Exactly.
us.
By the
That's,
simple stroke of a pen,
yes.
human rights are eliminated.
If
It's
I
hard
have
as
to
hell
see
to
that.
fight for it. It's hard as
Yeah.
hell to fight for it, and it should be harder to eliminate, but unfortunately, it's not.
I just keep thinking about his stupid signature.
Yeah,
Like, if I have to see that one more time, like, it's grating. But
I am liable to lose my shit. I mean, let's be real here.
agreed. No. What I also would love to expand on is your advocacy. And how did this all start? What motivated you and is really like keeping you here in this space?
I started going to a Pride festival here in Kansas City, and I got connected to organizations. Yeah, this is a
Mm.
really loaded question, so bear with me,
Okay.
because there's a lot that kind of went into it. And just today, I got to share a little bit of my experience with high school students at a local high school here in the Kansas City area. I serve at a nonprofit organization. I can't directly talk about that like 100%, but
Yeah.
I got to kind of differentiate myself. But I serve at a local nonprofit that does a lot of work in the community and a number of things, and really excited to, serve a term there and, do some really good work. Um, but we were talking to high school students and we got to share, our experiences about where we go, or like where we've been, and what we do and why we do it, right? So I got to talk
Mhm.
about that at this career fair, and it was really exciting to sit back and just listen to them talk as well, and just kind of answer our questions and kind of go through the rundown of what programs we offer, what services we offer, and things like that. But all in all, I think back to being that 14-year-old gay child going to my very first Pride festival and seeing a drag queen.
Yeah.
And I think about it like, oh, they are gorgeous. And then in my head, I'm going, is that a man? Is that a woman?
Yeah.
Who is this? What are they? Because it's really
Right.
weird. I never saw that before. And then I went home and I was introduced to RuPaul's Drag Race. And I was like, holy shit, these people are so cool. They're so beautiful. They're so exciting, right? So
Yeah.
then I went to my next Pride Festival and then started getting involved and started serving as a volunteer with different local organizations. And, fast
Mm.
forward 15 years later, this June will mark 15 years since I went to my first Pride Festival. And that was the beginning of a future for me, but it was also the beginning of the end, because then I started getting around the wrong people at the wrong place at the wrong time, became a survivor, lost friends to gun violence. My best friend was shot and killed back in 2019. And then last year, another one of my really close friends was shot and killed as well. So I think back to that, they were some of the first people that I came out to. But I kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, that I did not have the traditional coming out. I actually had images of me that were shared without my consent to multiple of my friends. And
Mhm.
these were very intimate images of myself. And, he told me, he was like, well, if you don't give me this, then I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And so I did it because I wanted to feel the love and I wanted to feel that joy and that excitement. However, little did I know it was going to lead to three failed suicide attempts, right? And then it led to drug addiction. I became addicted to fentanyl. That was my drug of choice. And then, it came very, very, very quick. And I did not have a childhood, or I didn't have a high school experience like your traditional high school experience. I was in and out of mental health hospitals. I was on different medications. And whenever I was there, I might have physically been there, but mentally I was elsewhere. I was somewhere that I couldn't even begin to explain because I
Right.
was physically sitting there listening or, trying to listen, but at the same time, I was looking down at my wrist, and I did a lot of self-harm and I did a lot of, that things. And I still have the scars, but I see them as battle scars because I have fought this battle for so long. I've been sober from fentanyl for 9 years. I've been sober from alcohol for
Wow.
5 years. Uh,
Wow.
so
Congratulations.
these are really big moments, and
Yes.
thank you for that. Um, these are really big moments, and they deserve to be celebrated. This December will be my 10th year. It'll be a decade that I have been sober. And
Wow.
that is a really big deal for me because I became sober in December of 2015. So
Mm,
this is going to be my 10th year. Uh,
my goodness.
Coincidentally, I became sober the day after my mom got divorced. um,
Wow.
and that felt really good because the night before I felt like shit. And because it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
uh, well, I mean, more of like that morning after she got divorced, I really did feel like shit because I had never had a hangover a day in my life. But that
Mm,
was one of the worst hangovers. I fell in a bathtub at home. Like it was like there's actually a picture of me that whatever I fell in the bathtub. Yeah,
wow.
my mom still has it and my partner has it because they kind of use it as like not as necessarily like as blackmail because that's not what it
Right.
is, but it's
Right.
more of like to show my progress. It's like you were here,
Mhm.
now look what you're doing now. You're going and sharing your story on podcast. You're running a national movement and bringing people together. You're
Mhm.
going and speaking to college campuses and you're going to testify for a bill at your legislature or your city council. Fast forward, leading this movement has been a very rewarding experience.
Yeah.
I have Mercedes in California. I have my partner that helps me, and then I have Gwen Levy in Tennessee. She went viral with her song Barefoot and Pregnant in 2023 after Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Right.
And that was a monumental song. I learned about it because it did go viral. Now she has millions of streams on it. She has, upwards of 70 something thousand followers on Instagram. So she's grown a lot. And keep in
Yeah.
mind that she's an independent artist, an independent country music artist that is not signed and is making one hell of a stride in the music
Yeah.
industry. Um, and she's making some severe progress and she's doing a phenomenal job. She has new music coming out. She
That's great.
collaborates with us on a lot of our posts, and she's a big reason for why this movement has grown into the way it has. She's given me a lot of
Mhm.
connections. She's given me a lot of inspiration, a lot of, that motivation just to keep going. After the
Right.
election, she texted me and she said, "What's next?" Because she was
Wow.
so excited to continue going. And Mercedes texted me, and I looked over at Amelia, and I was like, "They want me to keep going. Should we
Yeah.
keep going?" And Amelia's like, "Yeah, absolutely, you should. Look at what you've already done,
Mm-hmm.
and look at what we could potentially do." Fast forward to literally like a couple weeks ago, we hit 50,000, and now we're
Wow.
really close to 80,000, 30,000, almost 30,000
2 weeks?
followers. Yes, yes.
Oh my. Whoa.
So I really started noticing an uptick in followers the beginning of February.
Okay.
And it continued just growing and growing and growing and growing. We got added to a couple big collaborations.
Okay.
Um, we did some bigger posts, and it just, for some reason, we keep breaking through the algorithm. And I don't know how it keeps happening because, Meta likes
Right.
to suppress our voices.
Uh-huh.
And, but ultimately, at the same time, it's like, holy shit, we broke through the algorithm. This post has 12,000 likes on it. This post has 14. This post has 70. It's like, holy shit, like what just happened?
Right.
but it's nice to see. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people think that because an account has 70,000 followers, that every single post is monetized. It is not. I don't receive a
Yeah.
damn dime from it
Yeah.
because collaboration posts, because majority of our posts, we do collaborate with other content creators or other
Mm-hmm.
movements or organizations or things like that. None of that
Mm-hmm.
can be monetized because it's blocked, right?
Right.
So we continue pushing forward, and fast forward to today. Like I sat back and I reflected and I looked at where we were and where we are now, and it's just incredible. And
Oh, so
I
amazing.
I think about that, and I
Yeah.
think about it nonstop. I think about what would have happened if I never would have came up with the 3 a.m. idea of wanting to start a movement.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling over, looking at Amelia at 3 o'clock in the morning and saying, "Hey, I want to do something." And she looked at me and she said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to organize." She said, "You have been organizing for 14 years." I said, "No, dear, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I really want to organize. I want to
Yeah.
bring people together and give them a platform that they never have had before. I
Mm.
want a movement like this country has never saw before,
Yeah.
and where it's people powered, it's survivor powered. There's other survivor movements, and they've done incredible work, but I want to go further than that. How do
Yeah.
we ensure that survivors have equal representation in the media and not,
Mm.
these fictitious TV shows? Don't get me wrong, they're still great. I grew up on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my first
Mm-hmm.
celebrity crush was Mariska Hargitay. She was my very first celebrity crush. But at the same time, those shows, we know damn good and well they're not written by survivors,
Yeah.
or if it was, it wouldn't look like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not saying that it's not, there very well could be, but I'm just saying, ultimately, I don't believe so.
Right.
But then you watch these true crime documentaries, of like actual stories. And then you actually start sitting back and you start questioning, like, wow, I really did go through something. This person went through this. I had a similar experience to that. And then you start kind of like trauma bonding with the person that's on the TV,
Mm-hmm.
knowing damn good well they can't hear you and you're screaming at the TV. Well, that's fucked up,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they can't hear you, or you want to yell at this detective that says something completely ignorant on one of these true crime shows, and you're like, well, you really shouldn't have said that. Now, should you? You should have believed them from the beginning while they were still alive in order for them
Yeah.
to tell you what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes we know these systems fail us, and then we end up becoming victims of that system.
No notes. Like truly no notes after that. You're saying literally, why this podcast exists, right? Like it is so important for me to platform both sides. Platform the people that make that type of content to the people who are featured in it. So that kind of can segue me into my next question for you is your experience with the media. What has that been like for you? And how do you ingest media, especially when it's coverage about trauma survivors or marginalized groups?
So I probably do it better than a lot of people can. I don't get triggered super easily,
Hmm.
because of how many times I have been triggered. I guess I just become kind of desensitized to it a little bit. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh, that's really fucked up. And then I just continue on with my day. And that I think that's a lot of it is that trauma response. But in the end, it still eats me up inside. And thinking, oh gosh, this is a really complicated question in a really good way because it's actually made me think. I'm exhausted as it is, but at the same time, I know that this conversation is deeply important. I know that I wanted to do this and I know that I needed to do this, but my brain is telling me just go sit in the bathtub and just think, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be doing that afterwards. But it's just definitely
Good.
yes. I will definitely need it. Not because of you, not because of this, just in general, because the world sucks right now. Society sucks.
Oh, I
And
already took mine a couple hours ago, so you're in
uh,
good
I,
company.
I definitely have to. But all in all, to say, I think if I wouldn't have went through what I did, I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now. And
Hmm.
my experience in media has been kind of a mixed bag.
Hmm.
Reporters do a fairly okay job with
Hmm.
highlighting survivor stories. they're not entirely correct or not entirely perfect. And oftentimes in mainstream media, survivors you don't hear about until it's too late, until they're already murdered, until they're already, they died by suicide, or and then media wants to start covering it. That's not how we shatter the narrative that every single survivor voice is the same. We shatter that narrative by highlighting the different experiences. What you went through, what I went through is not necessarily the same. It might be the same aspect. However, how I felt is not how you felt, and how you felt is not how I felt, because people process things totally different, and nobody is the same way by processing trauma. And if they tell you that they did it the same way, they're full of shit. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's multiple ways to handle things. They might, and that I have had reporters look me directly in my face and said, "Oh, I understand what you went through." And then I say, "Oh, are you a survivor too?" No, yes, no, you don't. You don't understand what I've
Yeah.
been through because you haven't been through it yourself. And once again, you will never fully understand because you're not me. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know what went through my head. You might have had a similar thing, but did it happen at the exact same time, the exact same place, the exact same person? I mean, there is that potential. I'm not going to rule that out, obviously, but statistically proven, and statistically speaking, most people are sexually assaulted by somebody who is deeply personal to them.
Correct.
Like an intimate partner or a friend or a family member. Obviously there are random ones that do happen, but statistically speaking, it's typically by, people are assaulted and ultimately murdered by somebody who they're personally connected to. It could be a coworker, it could be your boss, it could be a police officer that you worked with in the past. Oh gosh, there's so many wild cases out there. And thinking about that, and like the media's representation of like black transgender people and
Mm-hmm.
black transgender women, um, in specific, we don't hear a lot about black transgender women whenever they are alive. We hear about it whenever they are murdered. Look at the murdered and missing indigenous women that go unnoticed and go unheard.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was full-blooded Native American, and she taught me a lot about that.
Yeah.
And she's like, the media's representation of women paints us all that we're villains and that we always like to quote unquote play the victim, or why didn't you just leave, or why didn't you just, because it's not that simple.
Yeah.
It's not that simple to just up and leave. Whenever you're under manipulative control and coercive control of your perpetrator, it's not that simple to just up and leave because of that fear of retaliation, or once again, like losing your housing or losing your health care or you know, losing literally everything. That's a huge risk for people,
Mm-hmm.
and then they become unhoused, or they're fleeing that, and then they lose their job, they lose their housing, they lose their health care because that person had that much control over them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we hear, well, why don't you just leave? It's not that simple. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that simple to just up and leave and
Mm-hmm.
walk away from somebody that's the only thing that you've known for so long.
Right.
There's only so much that somebody can take, and before you start to believe that you don't deserve anything better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know exactly what that feels like.
Right.
I was under that manipulative control for many years, and and like previous partners and things like that, and like the narcissistic abuse and the physical turmoil and the mental gymnastics of he loves me not, he loves me, he loves me not. Like picking that flower, and it's like this continuous flower that just keeps going over in my head.
Right.
And I think back to that, and I think about what would have happened if I wouldn't have went through what I did. When I still, it leaves a lot of those questions of what if I never got on social media?
Mm-hmm.
What if I never went to my first Pride festival? What if I never went to that friend's house where I was assaulted? What if it's a lot of those what if questions, and a lot of the time that goes unanswered. And it's like the self blame, for the
Yeah.
longest time, I blamed myself. If I wouldn't have put myself in that predicament, this wouldn't have happened. What
Yeah.
if I never would have had that last drink? What if I never would have went to that drag show? What if I never would have met this person on a dating app? What if I never, disclosed my personal history to them and let them know one of my deepest, darkest secrets that nobody in the entire fucking world will ever know? and then thinking about what they did to me and who they told that secret to.
Mm.
Thinking about that literally scares the shit out of me because there are people out there that, are not necessarily big fans of me, but at the same time, it's because I called them out on their bullshit. And I'm not afraid to share my story. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid to share my story. I will continue doing it because it deserves to be heard, just like every single survivor voice, which is what this movement does, is bring people together and amplifies those voices that oftentimes are left out of the conversation.
Hmm. Oh, I love it. Well, before I get to my last question, I definitely wanted to hit on Denim Day. Can you
Yeah.
talk to me about that since that will be coming up here soon?
Yeah. So Denim Day, the Rise Above Justice movement wants to do something with Denim Day. And, it's obviously still in the planning, it's like most definitely. Um, but essentially, it takes place on Wednesday, April 30th.
Mm.
And Denim Day was founded in Los Angeles. And it's now acknowledged in several places like worldwide in the United States and across the world. And the point of it and the significance behind Denim Day is to protest against the misconceptions that surround sexual violence.
Right.
And what do you wear on Denim Day? You wear your favorite pair of jeans as a visible symbol of support for survivors of sexual violence, encouraging your friends, your coworkers, and stay at home participation and make that collective statement. And, you use the hashtag, hashtag wear denim, and it shatters like a whole, like, it educates, it supports survivors, and you wear jeans with a purpose because anybody can wear a pair of jeans, anybody can wear
Right.
denim. But specifically on April 30th, it's a crucial day to wear it. A lot of cat calls, people become survivors that way, become victims, and then they turn into a survivor. Yeah. And
Yeah.
wearing denim that day is incredibly crucial. And, millions of people from across the world, they participate in this. It's not just here in the United States that
Right.
obviously violence happens, it's all across the world.
Hmm.
And, there's different ways that people can participate. Like us specifically, we want to, people can collaborate, post with us. People can post, a picture wearing their favorite pair of denim jeans, and they can leave a caption and we'll collaborate with them, or, do that hashtag wear denim or hashtag denim day and tag us on social media, which is what we're asking people to do. So that way we can
Sure.
amplify their voices and
Yeah.
amplify those experiences behind, sexual violence and shatter the narrative that, hey, we're not going to stay silent.
Right.
And,
Oh, I love it.
and this year, coincidentally, it is also the 100th day of the 2024, well, not 2024, damn it. This is the 100th day of the new Trump administration. It is day number 100. April 30th will be 100 days.
Mhm. Well, that just made my stomach turn. But
Because I was thinking about that
yeah.
because that was brought up to me, and I was like, "Oh,
Mm.
damn, that's actually that's a very critical point, and it's kind of coincidental, and
Oh,
it's
I'll be wearing my jeans then.
yeah,
And then some.
make sure to use the hashtag
I
Denim
will be
Day.
using the hashtag. I'll be tagging y'all.
Yep.
Yeah, I love this. So before I get to my last question, I'm just going to remind you that we always end this podcast on a high note. And so I'm going to do some fun questions before we hear this answer.
Ooh, you
So,
want to do like a rapid fire?
yeah.
Is that what you're
Like,
talking about? Like a rapid fire, like just like random questions, and I gotta
mm-hmm.
off the top of my head? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay.
Yay. Okay. So, but before we get to it, what advice would you give a trauma survivor who is thinking about breaking their silence for the first time? Maybe they're going to the media, whether it be they do it on their social media. What advice would you give them?
I strongly encourage talking to somebody first.
Mm.
Talk to a trusted adult, talk to a trusted person in your life, whether it be, your best friend or be, your spouse or your partner, or, talk to somebody first and kind of get their idea of a way to do it. I've seen a lot of survivors go directly to the media and then they end up going back into like this shell of a person, right? And
Yeah.
oftentimes the media likes to re-victimize and
Yes.
re-traumatize, just like a
Yes.
police department.
Hmm.
Um, there are other ways that somebody does not have to report to police. There's also restorative justice. There's also transformative justice, so TJ and RJ, Survivors for Justice Reform, which is a global coalition formed. Which, if you have not talked to her yet, you need to. Her name is Marley Leese. I can connect you.
Please.
She lives in Canada, but she has
Oh, hell
followers.
yeah.
She's incredible, but she has survivors that she works with here in the United States. She travels the United States and also Canada. She's a really prominent voice. We collaborate with them all the time. So you can go back to her profile and find Survivors for Justice Reform and find her. But she signed our letter that I sent to you because we just put out a letter that has over 120 plus signatures on it denouncing the Title IX reversing back to the 2020 guidelines during the first Trump administration. For those who are listening that do not know what Title IX is it helps survivors report their stories without fear of retaliation and without fear of rejection. Um, During the Biden-Harris administration, August of 2024, they added sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and sex-based discrimination to the Title IX. However, January 31st, 2025, literally 11
11
days
days.
after Trump took office, those guidelines were reversed back to the 2020 guidelines to remove every single ounce of that progress. And now we see with the attempted dismantling of the Department of Education, gutting and closing the Office of Civil Rights in a lot of locations. The Office of Civil Rights is the one that handles the Title IX complaints.
Yep.
So with removing that department, it leaves a lot of things in limbo because then these college campuses have no guidelines on how to respond to these, assaults that take place on their campus, and they by technicality, if there's no guideline, which means there's nothing that they have to do about it, which means more survivors are going to wind up in a system that they do not want to be a part of, and it's horrific to even think about.
Well, and to put some more context on that, so I had no conversation with Title IX after my rape on campus. Never happened. Didn't even know it existed. Let's be real. The campus police did not seem to think that was important for me to know. So the very first time that I spoke to Title IX office was actually in 2019 after I broke my silence against the University of Utah. And coincidentally, I am in conversation with them again as of 2 days ago.
Wow.
And when I think about how much, campus safety means to me, and again, anybody who has been listening to my podcast knows how deeply ingrained that is in me. Just thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, for doing something. I know it seems like such a small gesture, but this is what we need. This is what we desperately need right now, especially as survivors, as we sit back watching just like you said, progress just being stripped away, and it just feels so confusing. And yeah, I mean, that's literally how we first looked at each other when we got on this Zoom. We were just like, well, how are we doing? Because like we said, it's a lot right now. I am so grateful and thankful for all of you for doing this and leading this movement, inspiring so many people across the board. I mean, obviously, this is transcending to other countries, that unifying feeling that people are in our corners. I see that, I feel that, I know that. But Zach, like truly, this has been just such an enlightening conversation. I am so grateful that you are now in my orbit and in my community. It feels so good to hold this space with you. And please know that I would like you back. Uh, we can do a full ragey off script episode where we can just go the fuck off. And I'm here for it. So anytime you want that, text me.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. this podcast is a monumental podcast. And what I mean by that is you are doing the podcast version of what I am doing with this movement on social media. You're doing it's literally like a counterpart,
Yeah.
kind of like a twin movement, right?
Yeah.
We have our own podcast that we're getting ready to start. This
Yes.
is a
Yes,
shameless
yes, yes.
plug, but
Uh,
we have our own
shame
podcast.
away.
And then we're starting like a storytelling collective where we're going to do like the written stories and have them on our website, which is riseabovejusticement.com. Once again, a shameless plug. And also
Yes.
on our Instagram at Rise Above Justice Movement and Threads. And we're also on Blue Sky, which we haven't gotten a lot of traction on.
Ooh, yeah.
We cannot figure out the algorithm on it. And apparently you actually
It's
set your
wild.
own algorithm on Blue Sky, which is really odd and it's really weird. But you can
I
also
don't have the time.
no, neither do I. There ain't no way in hell. I don't have time to
No.
think about it. So we'll just continue going with what we have because
Yeah.
we're not on Facebook. I'm not creating a Facebook for it.
Hmm.
I thought about it because I could reach a whole different
Demo.
like demographic and like different people, but I was like, and we're definitely not getting on Twitter,
Uh,
um,
hard pass.
or X, whatever you want to call it. I mean,
It
you
is
know,
what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
we eliminated DEI, so I'm gonna call it by its dead name. I mean, we want to call trans people by their dead names. Why not, right?
Correct. Yep.
So
Twitter.
Twitter. It's always gonna be Twitter.
It is
Um,
Twitter. So send me all of these. Every link that you have, send it to me. It'll be in the episode notes, people. So you know where to find all of these amazing people, finding Zach. Um, so like I said, it is always my goal to end our interviews on a high note. These are rapid fire questions.
woohoo,
Okay.
my
So
favorite part.
whatever comes to you. Okay. So first one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
The ability to read people's minds because I
Ooh.
want to know what people are thinking. The mind is such a beautiful aspect of the human body
Mm.
that I want to be able to read minds. I want to be able to
Wow.
understand how people feel, understand how people are thinking, and understand the different thought patterns and the different thought processes that people go through,
Mm.
especially from a neurodivergent aspect. People on the autism spectrum, like myself, people with ADHD, people with PTSD, naming off my mental health
Yeah.
challenges, as I would say, because it definitely is a challenge, but it's also a hurdle that I've overcome with time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what an answer. I haven't heard that one. So, okay. So, what's the most interesting thing you've read, watched, or listened to recently?
I think the most interesting thing that I have watched was I watched a documentary about a couple survivors that came forward.
Mhm.
It was actually a recent documentary. I cannot remember the name of it, but they just came and they told their stories so candidly, and they just essentially called out their perpetrators and didn't even bat an eye about it.
Oh, I love it. Oh, speaking of documentaries, I wanted to make sure and to plug Kokomo City or The Stroll. I don't know if you've seen either of those, but they address Black trans women and sex work. So I don't want to spoil it, but Kokomo City and The Stroll both available on Max, I believe. So
Send
just
me
wanted
text me both of those
you
names,
got
please.
it. Oh
I
yeah,
want to watch
you
them.
got it. Yes, you need to. Okay. Now, what's a favorite show or movie? Or both?
So my favorite movie is anything that Medea,
Medea?
Medea. So Tyler Perry. Medea is
Zach,
like one of my favorite series.
get out. Really? I love
Yes,
this. I love
Med-
it.
Medea is literally my spirit animal. She thinks exactly like I do. I realize that it's Tyler Perry. There's some different things with him. I understand that.
Yeah,
But at
yeah.
the same time, Medea is literally my spirit animal.
Oh
I
my
cannot tell
God.
you how many times people have looked at me and said Medea would be so damn proud of what you just said because
Mm.
I tend to be very blunt. I tend to be very straight to the point, like she is. And yeah, so like Medea is literally my spirit animal. And whenever I tell
Oh,
you I have this inner this inner voice in
Medea.
my head, it just sounds
Oh.
like Medea. And if I said what I wanted to say, I would wound up in prison many years ago. Because if I did half the stuff that she's done on those movies,
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Oh my goodness. How fun. I was not
and
expecting that.
And
Yeah.
what's funny, kind of piggybacking off of that, so instead of saying lunch, I say lunch because she says it all the time. So she's like, it's time for lunch. And I said that at work the other day, and everybody just stared at me like, what did you just say? And I'm like, sorry. It just happens to come out at
You're like
random
my Medea
times.
comes out.
My inner,
Oh,
my spirit animal.
hilarious. Oh, amazing. Now, what about music? Are you into it? What's your favorite?
Anything that has like a really upbeat tone to it. Um,
Okay.
Amelia was searching through YouTube and found like a mashup of Madonna and Cher.
Oh,
And right, it's like one hell of a combination. I'll send it to you.
yeah,
Um,
please. I'm like,
but
now I'm intrigued.
it's like this whole mix, and
Yeah.
it's Hung Up by Madonna, and then Give Me
Oh,
a Man After Midnight by Cher. And it's like this whole mashup, and it's like a total drag song. You can definitely see
oh,
like
I
drag
love
dancing in your head, and it's like a total drag
it.
song. It's so incredible.
Uh, I love it.
Yeah.
Also, if you have never read The Hips on the Drag Queen, go swish, swish, swish. Please do. It is my daughter's favorite book right now. So, just something you got to look into. I'll send it to you too. Now, if you were an animal, then what would you be and why?
Probably a panda. Yeah,
Ooh.
or a zebra. Not just because my name starts with a Z, but
Okay.
zebras are very like calm. They're very timid. They're very like go with the flow. But I can also see myself being kind of like a monkey and just throwing shit at people because I've been known to do that. So it's kind of like the Donkey Kong version, just throwing at somebody or throwing something. Oh, like I can just see myself being a combination of all the above. So
Yeah.
the donkey or something, like I can be, I don't know. I can just, that's a really, really,
Maybe you're like, I don't know, a shapeshifter.
yeah, we
It
can
just
definitely do
depends on
that.
your
Yeah.
mood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it definitely does depend on my mood. And
Yeah.
then if I become a zebra with a Medea personality, it's all fucked. It's all over at that point. So
Then it's just off the rails at that
it's
point.
all over at that point. Think
Oh
about
my
that with a
goodness.
zebra with a Medea personality, we're all
Ugh,
fucked at that point. I
I
mean, let's be
am
real.
living for this. Okay, now, what's a hobby or a passion people might be surprised to learn about you?
I take like 6 or 7 showers in a day. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is, and it's very surprising, right? But I like to stay clean. I like to stay fresh. I like to stay, I cannot stand dirt under my nails. I cannot stand
Mm,
my feet stinking. I cannot stand stinking. I
yeah.
cannot, I'm that kind of person that I'm very neat and very clean.
Yeah.
My room would say something completely different. Growing up, I was completely different. But me
Yeah.
personally, I have to stay clean. If I
Yeah.
get water on my socks, I have to change my socks. So it's a
Yeah.
weird thing, but I would say definitely a hobby would just be doom scrolling on social media, and I can do it for
Mm,
hours, and I wind up in the
mhm.
bathtub for 6.5 hours sometimes, not even
Yeah.
realizing that I've been in there for 6 hours, and then I get up and my feet are cramping, my legs are cramping,
Ugh.
but it's my favorite pastime, just getting lost in social media. And oftentimes
Yeah.
it's like a good thing, or I get into watching YouTube videos just to let my mind just be at ease, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, I like those. Okay. What's your go-to karaoke song? And I feel like you have one.
Ooh. I would definitely say my. So you may not know, but I used to perform in drag. I used to do drag shows. I used to host like fundraisers. That shouldn't be a
Mm.
surprise to you at all. Um,
Will you send me a
but
picture? Can I post a picture?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So it was definitely something that I had a lot of fun doing until I fractured my ankle, not in drag, but I'm no longer able
Mm.
to wear a pair of heels. I cannot do that. And if you're not wearing heels, you're not doing drag. That's what was distilled in my head, even though we know that's false. But
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong way of doing drag. It's literally an art form and you can't ban it. But
Yes.
I would definitely say Born This Way is probably one of my favorite karaoke songs by Lady
Mm.
Gaga because it has such a deep meaning behind it. and
Yeah.
such an inspirational tone behind it. And it uplifted people from those backgrounds that said, hey, it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, or bi, lesbian, or transgender life, no matter what they say, you were born this way. And
Mhm.
that was a monumental moment in our lives. Whenever she came out
Yeah.
with that song, Lady Gaga is also a survivor herself.
Yeah.
Till it happens to you,
Mhm.
you won't know how it feels because she went through hell and back. She did. She went through a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
also like Taylor Swift. I mean, she countersued
Yes.
somebody for $1 and won. Like that's incredible. Taylor Swift is
Yes.
also a survivor herself.
Correct.
Taylor has done so much incredible work, and it's
Mhm.
one thing to not like her music, but one thing that people cannot deny is her entrepreneurial spirit.
Mhm.
And, whenever we say tax the rich, we know what that means. It
Yeah.
still applies to, billionaires. I mean, look at Elon
Yeah.
Musk, but,
Mhm.
but I would definitely say my go-to karaoke song is Born This Way,
I
most
love
definitely.
it. Ah, cute. I love that answer. Ah, what about like a travel spot or somewhere you go that's like it just feels good to your soul?
It used to be Washington, D.C.
Oh,
Back in 2022, I went to the White House.
oh,
I got to hear Kamala Harris speak in person and President Biden speak.
wow.
And they announced the ATF director that day. I was invited by the president to attend, but
Oh my
also
goodness.
on behalf of like every town for gun safety and Moms Demand Action, I went and attended that event.
Wow.
They flew me up there. I got to stay the night up there, and then the next day went to the White House and standing there looking. And if you look at my Instagram, I posted a picture of it last night. Whenever I was sitting in the Rose Garden, thinking about Jacqueline Kennedy and thinking about how much time she put into the Rose Garden to see it all
Mhm.
destroyed to look more like Mar-a-Lago during this administration. I saw something about
Please.
that come out and I was like, oh my God, how disrespectful. How disrespectful can it
Mhm.
be? Seriously. Because that's literally getting rid of our history. That's
History, the White House legacy. Come
literally that
on.
the Rose Garden is so beautiful in person.
Yeah, I
Um,
can
and
imagine.
there was a little bit of an issue with like the Secret Service outside.
Hmm.
Somebody, whoever entered my information to put it into their system, entered my birth date wrong. So
Mm.
I had to stand outside and I was just talking to the Secret Service and, just talking to them and having, just chit chatting. They're actually really sweet. They're actually really nice.
Yeah.
And they are. They're just
Yeah.
doing their job,
I
you
know
know?
some ex ones, and yeah, and they are truly some of the nicest people.
Yes.
And DC is my favorite city on the East. Um, so I feel you
You know what? I
there.
would have to say my actual favorite city I've been in is probably Minneapolis.
Really?
It's such a beautiful city,
Wow.
beautiful,
I need
you
to
know,
go.
not to mention the fact Governor Walls,
Oh, yeah, seriously.
let's be real here. Governor Walls is one of my favorite people in the entire world. He's just funny, he's goofy, and he
Yeah.
just doesn't give a damn. He will tell people
No.
straight up, just mind your own damn uterus, mind your own damn business. He said it on the campaign trail. I was so excited whenever she chose him to be her VP.
P.
That was I got so emotional,
Yeah.
thinking about who he is. And he used to be a coach and he used to be the sponsor of a GSA and he helped so many people
Yes.
during the election. And afterwards, we just reconnected with a group of students who are former students of Coach Walls. And we heard
Wow.
the experiences and we heard how he was to them and how he uplifted them and supported them through some of their darkest times. I mean, they're on Instagram. They
Ugh.
are incredible.
Oh,
um
that warms my
yeah,
heart.
so
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So what people see is actually
Mhm.
him. He
Yeah.
absolutely hates teleprompters
I love
and
that.
he's just authentic.
Yeah. Ugh, my heart. Okay. So, one of my favorite things that I do on the podcast is highlighting small businesses, especially those small businesses who could really use a shout out.
So there is a life-saving lipstick that was created
Okay.
by Joy Hoover, and it's
Ooh,
called SOS Cosmetics. I will
ooh,
send you the direct link to it.
Please.
because the work that Joy Hoover has done is incredible. She has a life-saving lipstick that it looks like a lipstick because it is, but it also has a test strip that is also in it that you can test for like fentanyl or other types of like roofies and
What?
stuff. It is an incredible
Wow.
creation. And then also the Safe Squad mobile app, which is now a registered nonprofit,
Oh yeah.
which is founded
Mercedes.
by one of my co-founders, Mercedes. We're doing a month-long fundraiser for that, and it hasn't got like a whole lot of traction on it because we're shadow banned and
Yeah.
talking about positive things like that. But I'm committed to fundraising for her and helping her update that app because that app is available in like 130 something countries.
Wow.
She turned her rage into action,
Mm.
and you will definitely want to interview her and talk
Oh,
about that
we're
app.
already in contact.
Good. She has a lot of knowledge, and she is
Yeah.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
She just turned 24, I believe. I think she just turned 24.
Wow. 24.
And she was told that she was a mockery of the Me Too movement whenever she came
Oh,
forward.
Lord.
Oh yeah, she'll talk about it. She talks about her story very, very openly.
Yeah. Well, it'll like I said, we are in contact
Good,
and she very much is game to do this.
good,
So I'm very
good.
excited to do that then. All right, last question. Who is a hero of yours and why?
You,
Stop.
you.
Don't.
And the reason I say that is because you do this work that highlights stories that never get told. And you do it with such a charismatic attitude. You listen, you don't interrupt, you pay attention. You have inspired me to continue pushing forward. You have helped me move forward just by just being this overwhelming positive aura of energy. It gives me a lot of vibes, you know, like of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that had a vision set. Rosa Parks, she broke these narratives and broke these stereotypes. And we have a lot of monumental leaders in our country, but you outshine a lot of that. You just have like this you have this positive energy that just inspires people all around. You channel rage into action, you follow through on those actions, and you make sure that people have the voice that so many have needed for so long. But all in all, my absolute hero would have to be my mother. You both have similar personalities. You both have just this caring heart, but my mom has been my rock since day one. My mom is also a survivor, and yes, I have permission to share that. My mom is also a survivor. But all in all, I would say I was raised by powerful women, and you being a
Yeah.
powerful person yourself,
Mm.
like it's a whole full 360 moment that just continues to shine a light on very difficult subjects. True crime
Mm.
is not the easiest thing to
Mm-mm.
highlight and to talk about. It is very traumatizing and living vicariously through people, but also living the generational trauma and the generational curses. It is incredibly hard to overcome a lot of the obstacles that people oftentimes are not able to overcome. And you help people overcome a lot of those obstacles by platforming what actually needs to be platformed and calling out the bullshit whenever you see it. There's just something about you that I gravitated towards, and I was like, I have to reach out, I have to do something,
Mm.
collaborations, things like that. Like, there's a lot of potential in the future
Yeah.
about, a lot of things, and I cannot thank you enough for everything that you
Ah,
do,
oh,
um,
thank you.
because it doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank, thank you for saying that. I'm truly speechless. Like I said, I'm so grateful that you are in my orbit and getting to hear your story. For listeners, this was actually the first time I like fully heard his story. So we did a pre-interview and so my feelings and emotions that you hear, that was very much in real time. And what a beautiful moment that is, even though we are looking at a screen at each other. But being able to connect, and like I said, for you to feel safe in this space, to do so, and to do so vulnerably. And like I said, I know there are so many different types of survivors out there, and it's a wonderful reminder for those people who are struggling that they're not alone. They're not alone. And it takes people like yourself and all of your fellow amazing people behind this account. I mean, I can't sing your praises enough. It is one little spot on my Instagram that makes me feel safe and makes me feel validated, especially with the mass shit storm that is just America right now. And I need it. And I know so many others do. And so just again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your sweet, kind words, but equally doing this. You're coming back. I need to have you back. Like I said, we're gonna rage. I want to talk more Lady Gaga with you. So yes, just thank you so much again, Zach, for just being this wonderful, beautiful human, and for everything that you were doing for survivors. I say thank you. If today's episode has brought up any difficult emotions or trauma, please know that support is available. You can find helpful resources in the episode summary. Thank you for listening, and be sure to take care of yourself. Be sure to join me next week when I sit down with Kyle Joyce. Kyle is a seasoned cameraman whose work has taken him from the fast-paced kitchens of Chopped on the Food Network to the high-stakes world of In Pursuit with John Walsh. In this conversation, Kyle shares what it's like to be behind the camera in both food and true crime television, offering a unique look at the adrenaline, the emotion, and the unexpected moments that come with the job. Catch that episode dropping next Wednesday. This is True Crime in Hollywood, a personal tale, a La Activista production with music by Mickey O'Brien. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a review for the show. Thank you for listening, and as always, remember the victims and embrace the survivors.